There is a kind of love that doesn't scream. It doesn't confess. It doesn't even fully understand itself. It sits quietly in the corners of the psyche, mysterious, unconscious, terrified of the light. Carl Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. And that's exactly what's happening here. He may not know he loves you. He may not call it love. He may not even feel it yet because he's spent his life hiding from feeling. But it's there. You've seen the flashes, the hesitation, the tension in his jaw when you smile at someone else. You've felt the pull like gravity, like something ancient inside him is waking up when you're around. He's a man haunted by a longing he can't name, because to name it would mean to feel it, and to feel it would mean to risk losing control. But love, real love, it doesn't ask for permission. It breaks through the cracks of the mask. It bleeds through dreams. It shivers down the spine in moments of silence, and if you know how to see the signs, you'll realize he's already in love with you, far more than even he can imagine. Let's break it down. Love, real love, the kind that transforms a man, rarely begins with comfort. It often begins with conflict. Not the loud, dramatic kind, but the subtle war inside his chest when you walk into the room. Carl Jung called it the shadow, the hidden self, the parts of us we repress, deny, or pretend don't exist. The shadow isn't evil. It's simply truth we've buried, our fears, our rage, our insecurities, our desire to be vulnerable, seen and loved, yet equally terrified of being exposed. When a man is secretly falling in love, it's not always light and laughter. It can be disruption. You stir something in him. Maybe he gets defensive around you. Maybe he withdraws after sharing something deep. Maybe he looks at you like you're both a miracle and a threat. You didn't do anything wrong. You just touched something real. He spent years curating the mask: confidence, ambition, detachment. He's learned how to win games and survive heartbreak. But you bypass the mask. You go straight to the parts of him he tries to keep hidden, even from himself. He may pick fights with you for no reason, or say he's not ready for anything serious, while still orbiting your life. That's not rejection. That's a man whose shadow is screaming for air. You are not just a woman to him. You are a mirror. And that reflection includes everything he hasn't yet made peace with. His yearning, his fear of abandonment, his guilt, his shame, his hunger to belong somewhere again. This is what no dating coach will tell you. If he seems triggered by your presence, you may have already taken residence in his unconscious. He's resisting not because you're wrong for him, but because you might be too right. Love doesn't always walk in with a smile. Sometimes it walks in with shaking hands and darting eyes and long silences, because the shadow isn't comfortable being seen. But when it is, when a man finally has the courage to look at it, really look, that's when transformation begins. That's when he starts becoming the man who can love you in the light. Until then, pay attention. His discomfort isn't rejection, it's revelation. Love doesn't always start with clarity. Sometimes it begins with projection. Carl Jung taught that every man carries within him an unconscious image of the feminine, the anima. She's not just a type or his preference. She's the soul of his longing, the whisper in his dreams, the part of him that seeks wholeness. And when he meets someone who mirrors that image, it's electric. It's terrifying. It's irrational. Because he's not just falling for you. He's falling for the part of himself that lives in you. This is why, when a man is secretly in love, he may seem enchanted by you without understanding why. He might say things like, "I don't know what it is about you. You're different. You feel familiar. That familiarity isn't from this lifetime. It's from his inner world, one he's probably never explored. You didn't just catch his eye. You reached into his unconscious and stirred something sacred. But here's the shadowy side. Projection isn't clarity. It's confusion dressed as connection. He may start idealizing you, putting you on a pedestal, imagining you're flawless, expecting you to intuitively understand him. That's not fair to you, but it's not about cruelty, it's about blindness. He isn't seeing you as you are. He's seeing the goddess within himself that he's never dared to meet until now, and it's disorienting. Because this kind of love doesn't feel like desire. It feels like destiny, so he hesitates. He may lean in, then pull back. He may fantasize, but resist real intimacy. Because to truly love you, he'd have to take that projection back. He'd have to see you not as a symbol, but as a human being, and that requires soul work. Here's the brutal truth Jung gave us. Until a man reclaims his anima, he cannot love a real woman. He will fall for shadows, chase ghosts, but when he begins to see you clearly, not as the anima, but as yourself, that's when true intimacy is possible. So if you feel like he sees something in you he can't explain, don't run. He's not confused. He's being invited into a deeper kind of love, the kind that starts not with possession, but with inner awakening. There's a strange ache that takes root in a man when he meets someone who could change everything. It doesn't always feel like joy. It often feels like conflict, a tug-of-war between the man he's been and the man he's being called to become. Carl Jung would call this psychic dissonance, a tension of opposites. When he stands in front of you, he doesn't just see beauty. He feels exposed, vulnerable, split. Part of him wants to reach for you, hold you, open the gates of his soul and let you in. But another part, the guarded, weary, masculine archetype, forged in years of heartbreak and control, pulls away. Not because he doesn't care, but because he cares too much, too fast, too deeply. You see, when a woman touches a man's emotional core, it doesn't always ignite passion. Sometimes it ignites panic. He might act hot and cold. One day he's deeply present, whispering truths he's never told anyone. The next he ghosts, retreats. He says, I just need space. Or worse, you're amazing, but I'm not ready. Listen carefully. That confusion is not indifference. That push-pull dynamic. It's the soul wrestling with its own reflection. This is the sacred war between the persona, the mask he shows the world, and the self, the deeper truth within him that longs for wholeness. You've triggered that war simply by being, and that's terrifying for a man who's never been taught how to feel safely. He's told to dominate, to seduce, to stay in control. But with you, control slips, because love, real love, requires surrender. And surrender to an unhealed man feels like death. Jung said, there is no coming to consciousness without pain. So if he seems emotionally torn, it might be because you've awakened a part of him he thought was long dead. A boy who once dreamed of love without fear. A man who now stands at the threshold of something true and doesn't know if he has the strength to walk through it. So don't take his hesitation as rejection. Take it as a sign you've reached the layers of him that most never touch. And he's trying clumsily, fearfully, to become a man worthy of the love you unknowingly offer. Jung once wrote, the dream is the small hidden door in the deepest and most intimate sanctum of the soul. So what happens when a man begins to see you in that dream space? Simple, you're not just on his mind. You've moved into his unconscious. He may not admit it. He might even try to ignore it. But late at night, when his defenses fall and his ego sleeps, you appear. Not always clearly, not always romantically, but you're there as a symbol, a guide, a spark, a voice, a mystery. Sometimes he dreams of losing you. Sometimes you're walking ahead of him and he can't catch up. Other times you're silent in the background while chaos rages around him. He wakes up uneasy, not because he's afraid of you, but because the soul is trying to tell him, she matters. You've entered the inner temple. This isn't just some romantic fantasy or psychological coincidence. In Jungian terms, when someone enters your dreams, especially repeatedly, it means they are linked to your individuation process. You are now part of his becoming. You're not just a woman he likes. You're a symbol of something deeper, maybe the wholeness he seeks, the tenderness he suppresses, the love he doesn't yet know how to receive. If he's honest, he'll admit these dreams disturb him, because what we dream of, we cannot control, and for a man used to power, strategy, and logic, that loss of control feels like drowning. But here's the thing. The soul only speaks in symbols when words fail. So even if he can't say it, even if he pretends he doesn't care, even if he tells himself you're just a phase, the dream doesn't lie. You live in that sacred space behind his eyes, and every time he closes them, there you are again, not demanding, not chasing, just being, reminding him that love, real love, begins in the deepest silence of the soul. So if he's dreaming of you, don't underestimate what you've awakened. You are no longer just a presence in his life. You are now part of the story his soul is trying to write. A man in love doesn't always smile when you walk into the room. Sometimes he goes quiet. Sometimes he fidgets. Sometimes he turns into someone even he doesn't recognize. Why? Because love, real love, shakes the foundations. And Carl Jung reminded us that whenever something from the unconscious rises into awareness, it doesn't enter politely. It enters like a storm. You walk into his life, and suddenly his carefully built emotional walls start to crack. He's used to control, composure, power, but with you the mask slips, and the mood changes. He might seem agitated, but it's not about you. It's the internal war. He's battling the archetypes inside him. The lover, the boy, the shadow, the warrior. One moment he's open, vulnerable, connected. The next he withdraws, moody, distant, unsure. That's the anima calling. That's the self whispering. This is not surface level. This is transformation. Most men have never learned how to hold space for that kind of energy. They know how to pursue, how to impress, how to possess, but how to simply feel in front of someone who sees them. That's terrifying, and so the moods swing. He might light up when you laugh because joy with you feels real, then turn cold the next day because the intimacy feels too real. Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. This man isn't being cold or confusing on purpose. He's being moved by unconscious tides he hasn't yet named. But if you pay attention, really pay attention, you'll notice something. His mood shifts when you're near because you affect him on a level he can't yet explain. You matter to his inner world, you challenge the structure he's lived in, and that moodiness, that's the tremble before emotional breakthrough. It's the soul rearranging itself around someone who could actually see, touch, and love the real him. So don't take his distance personally. Take it as a sacred signal. You're not just another woman. You're the mirror of his evolution. And his soul is reacting like anyone's would when waking up. Dazed, disoriented, but slowly, undeniably alive. Here's something most people miss. When a man truly falls for you, at the core, not the surface, he doesn't just act different. He becomes different without being pushed, without being shamed, without being told. Carl Jung taught that true change comes not from external pressure, but from an internal revelation, a confrontation with the self. And when a woman touches the deeper layers of a man's psyche, she awakens the archetype of transformation. She doesn't beg him to grow, her presence initiates growth. Her spirit calls him to be more than he's been. He starts showing up on time. He begins listening, really listening. He puts down the games, the ego, the distractions. He may even revisit old wounds, heal old son scars, not because you asked, but because loving you reveals the gaps between the man he is and the man he wants to be. This isn't about performance, this is about integration. Jung called this process individuation, the journey of becoming whole. And sometimes a man can wander lost for years, until one soul connection lights the map. That's you. You may notice he starts talking differently. His values shift. His friends change. The things he once chased, attention, validation, conquest, begin to lose their grip. Because he's no longer seeking escape. He's found something real, something that grounds him, and yes, it scares him. Change always does, but the deeper truth is, he wants to rise to meet you. You've become the symbolic flame, not in a savior, complex kind of way, but in a mythic, deeply human way. You represent a future where his heart is open, his wounds are seen, and his masculinity is no longer a performance but a presence. Jung wrote, "Your vision will become clear only when you look into your heart. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes, and he's waking up." So if you see a man shifting bit by bit, quietly, without demand or manipulation, know this.